everybody, welcome back to a new video. Classes are still postponed, but we're keeping on. I'm heading out now to the lecture that I'm TAing for, so just going to be there for the lecture. We read a very short story today. It was only a couple pages, but it was interesting, so I'm excited to see what we talk about in class today. Because, yeah, I haven't seen the slides or anything, so I don't really know what direction the lecture is going to take. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This morning, I've just been doing some readings at home, edited our last video. Yeah, I feel very I'm excited to go out and see people, because obviously I don't really know that many people here that well yet. So I was really just by my lonesome this weekend, so it's just gonna be some word vomit. If you thought last week's video was chatty, watch out. But yeah, I'm just gonna head out to class. I'm gonna see if the other girls maybe wanna get coffee or something afterwards. We'll see. Hello, so I've just gotten back from the class. So it was quite interesting. We were talking about, it was this two-page reading. It was on a fable for the end of the world, which is this fable, this kind of fiction piece that's placed at the beginning of Spring? No, name just does not stick in my head. Silent Spring, which is a non-fiction work by Rachel Carson, which I didn't know this was so widely read or so influential that it kind of was one of the things that led to them banning DDT and stricter regulations on the use of pesticides and insecticides, which was really interesting because overall today in class we were talking about the apocalypse as a trope and sort of apocalypse fiction. So in this fable, it's quite short. It's just talking about this really beautiful small town in America that used to exist but doesn't any longer, and it never really is talking explicitly about pesticides or insecticides, but it's talking about the pigs aren't having new piglets, the birds that used to sing, you don't hear them anymore, as the world's there's no more bees to pollinate trees, so as the natural world is kind of being destroyed or is no longer exists. And so it's not a really grand dramatic apocalypse, it's more this kind of slow downfall of the natural world that's placed kind of in front of this really heavy, I haven't read it, but the professor said really heavy, kind of difficult to read text that's very scientific. So that was it. It was an interesting class. It was an interesting, I thought that was quite interesting text to start with, or to start exploring and to use as kind of an example of sort of invoking the imagery of the apocalypse, because it's not necessarily, it wouldn't necessarily be the first thing that comes to mind when you think about apocalypse fiction or using the apocalypse in literature. So yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool choice and sort of a interesting kind of different lens through which to discuss that topic. And then yeah, afterwards me and the other two girls that are TAing grabbed a coffee at Noggins, which is, I think there's a couple in Halifax. I don't know if it's a Halifax only thing, but it just seems to be kind of a bougie little mini grocery store farmer's market. They had these tiny chocolate bars that were $10. But they also have a little cafe area, which is just kind of normal cafe prices for coffee and everything. But I think for grabbing bread or something like that every now and again, that would be a cool stop. And it's right on my way home from where most of the classes are and everything. Because all of my classes are kind of in these 2 or 3 buildings that are all right next to each other on campus. So yeah, Noggins I can walk by on my way to get home. So that might be something I could do in the future if I ever wanted a nice bread every now and again. Because they have a little bakery kind of section. And then they also have like meats and stuff like that, and like herbs, and then like preserves and things. One girl was saying that they do have like prepared foods, because she was telling a story that one day she was like, it was a long, bad day on campus, and she had to get the bus home, and it was gonna take her a really long time to get home because she lived quite far out at the time. She was like, don't have anything, I don't want to cook, and I don't have any groceries at home. Don't have time to go grocery shopping, so I'm just gonna get a pizza there and then take it home. And then she got this pizza and it was like so expensive, and she had to take it on the bus home. So I don't know if it's the best place to stop for stuff like that price-wise, but apparently it was good. So yeah, just kind of like a nice little spot that's kind of close. Like if you ever need to grab something, there are options there. But yeah, just like a cool spot and nice to like talk to people. So for the rest of the day, I want to finish up, like I've got a bunch of emails and stuff that I have to send, so I'd like to get that done today. I've got a couple of readings that it's my goal to finish today, or at least like get a good chunk done from like some books and stuff, so probably get cracking on that at some point. I would also like to go and take a walk, and I might do that earlier because I'm not sure if I want to walk down to the harbor in the other direction from where I went on the weekend, because I think it's quite close, so I'd kind of like to see how close it is. So I might do that today, or I might save that for the weekend. Or I thought that I might go down, there's this one street where I like go to grocery shop and stuff, so it's pretty close to me. And there's like an antique store and stuff that I thought might be cool to check out at some point, so I'd like to do that maybe today as a little outing at some point, but I'd have to look up if it's open today, and if so, when it closes, because it does seem like the kind of store that might close a bit earlier, so we'll see. I looked it up, and that antique store it's not open today at all. It actually doesn't open till Wednesday, and today's Monday, so that's not gonna happen today. So I wound up just working a bit at home here, and now I'm just gonna go for like a walk. And I think I will go the other direction from where I've explored so far. And yeah, see if I can go down to the water, maybe just like walk around the residential area, see what I can see.
On the surface, ain't a James Dean type. We're just cooped up in a cruiser on a Friday night.
Hello everybody. So it's a very exciting morning around here today because we got an email really early this morning that the lockout has come to an end. So they've reached, I think they said a tentative agreement, but I'm assuming they're announcing it's official, that we're gonna be going back to classes. So I don't know, I couldn't really tell from the email. I don't know if they've like officially reached a formal contract, but the lockout has ended and the strike has ended, so we're gonna be going back to classes, which presumably, considering like how deadlocked they were and how like hostile negotiations seem to have been, I'm assuming that means they have reached an agreement, because I don't think that they would have ended the strike if it hadn't been like an official, this is gonna go through kind of contract, because wouldn't make sense otherwise. But since it's ended, it said that it could take up to 10 days for classes to go back. I think part of the agreement, they agreed to come back like 5 days-ish, because obviously like they kind of locked them out in the lead up to classes. So a lot of profs, like, you can't really just be like, okay, next day, ready to jump in, particularly because we're a couple weeks behind now. So then it's like, okay, gotta figure out what we're gonna do like with this later start. So hopefully we'll get back next week probably. I know like the profs all want to get back as soon as possible, so I'm assuming it's gonna be like around 5-ish days. Yeah, so probably not this week, but I'm assuming like start of next week, I'm gonna guess. But something else that's really nice, the DAL extended the internal deadline for Shirk, because basically how it works is Shirk has its own deadline, which is for the doctoral scholarships, like October 17th, I believe. But universities with a quota, so they have like a certain number of applications that they can or have to send forward. They usually have their own internal deadline, which is earlier because then the university department needs to review the applications. So DAL's was originally October 6th, but they've extended it because of the strike, which is really, really nice, because then I think that means that the department is still gonna be able to do workshops, which is so nice. I know, because it is just very stressful. I've filled out a ton of applications like that, but like this is big funding on the line, and it's, yeah, you just like want to put your absolute best foot forward. So hopefully we'll be able to be doing lots of that. And obviously then easier to like contact profs here for references and everything. So yeah, that's quite nice and like very reassuring, and like I'm glad that they were able to do that. So yeah, it's been a day of good news basically. But today because not having classes yet, I don't have any classes that I'm going to, but I am going to just like a short kind of training meeting for the writing center, because I'm working as a tutor this year, so it's gonna be like about 3 days a week, maybe more with like online sessions, but those are the days that I'll be like in person at the writing center. They haven't really said like, here are the hours that you should be available for like online stuff. But yeah, I think I'd be curious what kind of the ratio is for people who want to do online meetings versus in person. Because I think that if you're coming for tutoring help, most people would prefer in person, just because I think it's like easier to go through something one-on-one in person. But yeah, so I'm gonna have some training today anyway, which is nice. But right now I'm just taking some notes on readings for my detective fiction class. So one of the classes that I'm taking this term is called Queerness in Detective Fiction. So it's exactly what the title sounds like, basically looking at queerness in detective fiction. It's very self-explanatory. But the first book we're reading is actually Agatha Christie, which I'm quite excited about. It's A Murder is Announced, which I haven't read and I'd never heard of before. I don't know if it's like one of the more popular Agatha Christie's, but I'm quite excited. I think I've read 2. I read Death on the Nile, and then I think it's Death on the Nile, that's what that one's called, right? And then I think I read another one, because like we had 2. My sister was kind of into them for a minute there, so I just read a couple of her copies. So yeah, I'm doing that. Right now I'm reading like the critical secondary readings. So I don't have a strong preference between taking like handwritten notes and typed notes. I like taking handwritten notes because like I like the process, but I also like having typed notes because then when you're going back, you can like Control F and search stuff, which is quite nice. So right now I'm taking handwritten stuff, but I'm thinking I might type it up after, or I've been taking handwritten stuff, so I might try to type it up later, or I wonder if I could use Transcribus to transcribe it for me, because that would be sick. And then in class, I usually take typed notes if I can, just because like I can't write as fast as I can type. So sometimes when I'm like trying to handwrite notes, then I miss things that the professors say because I'm focused on like writing the previous note. But yeah, that's a little bit about that. But what I kind of do is like, so in the dark blue, these are my notes on like
just what is like important things from the actual article, and then in the green I'm putting in like my little ad libs or any kind of connections that I've made just to kind of like distinguish them.
Because then in class it's kind of easier when you're discussing it to like pick out what your thoughts were on the topic, so it's just kind of like organized that way. So that's my little hot tip. Alright, so I'm about to head to Writing Center training, which is taking place at the Killam Library, which is kind of Dalhousie's like main library. I think it's quite an infamous building because it's very like Nova Scotia brutalist, which is to say it's very imposing. Some might say a touch ugly. Generally, I think the campus is quite pretty. I do feel that they could have done something a bit cooler with the library. It's like a cool enough looking building from the outside, but I prefer the old like Englishy looking buildings. So it's not like my favorite library I've ever seen, but I haven't actually been inside it yet. So this will be cool. Someone was telling me there's like a Subway in there. I think the like main floor has a bunch of like cafeteria kind of food courty options. So curious to see what that looks like. The main library at U of S was kind of like that. Like the main floor had like the main desk and a Starbucks and stuff. And then as you went up, it was more library floors. So yeah, gonna go over there, check out the library and do some training. So back from the Writing Center training, a lot of it was actually kind of similar to what she spoke about at the TA training thing that she spoke at, because basically like the manager of the Writing Center was asked to do one of the talks at the TA training, and that's the one that I went to. So it was kind of similar, like talking about ways to give written feedback, that kind of thing. Then this was going into basically the kind of like fundamentals of their approach essentially, because it's very much like about we're not giving advice on content. You don't want to be prescriptive, like you're not rewriting sentences for them, you're just giving sort of suggestions and really helping them, whether it's depending on what, you know, their priority is, if they want like grammatical help or help like with argumentation and organization, which honestly, that to me, I feel like it's easier said than done not to give prescriptive feedback on that, because it's kind of difficult to be like, your structure doesn't make sense, you should do this instead. So I feel like it's all just kind of like leading them to make the change that you want them to make, which is not actually what it is, but like, I don't know, it's a lot about like talking about what's working and what isn't working and trying to help them kind of like come to a solution on their own, I guess, with like the tools that you give them. And then obviously you can like explain what a comma splice is and that kind of thing. You just can't like, you could point out like, oh, this in your work is a comma splice, here are ways you can fix it. And then they have to like fix it themselves, you know what I mean? If you're like, this sentence is a run-on sentence, so one thing you could fix this is to like break it up somehow into 2 sentences, and then they have to like decide how they want to rework it themselves, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to go through and rewrite it for them to say like, oh, you could make this a new sentence instead and then just change this bit at the front, like that kind of thing. And then I think it's sort of similar when you're talking about the things that do kind of lead more into content. Like, say they come in with a really weak thesis statement, you can be like, okay, your argument's a little vague. Can you like explain to me what you're trying to say about the thing? And then point out like, exactly what you just told me is a much stronger argument, or it seems like you're not totally sure, you might want to like think about this a little more, you know, instead of like giving them the answer. So yeah, I think it's just like keeping that in mind, because it's different than when you're like editing someone's project, because then you don't have to be, I think, so careful about that kind of distinction, or like in other kind of contexts where I've done stuff like as a teacher, you are able to be a bit more specific, I guess, seemingly. So yeah, but met a few people that are also going to be tutoring, and that will kind of start next week. I think normally they say it's like a slower lead-in,
but apparently they've already been really busy. I think people are just like stressed out with the lockout and everything, because I'm kind of like curious what people are actually coming to them for, because I mean, upper years might have kind of more stuff, because in some programs I think fourth years will like have a thesis and everything, so I'm sure that's something that maybe they've already started working on, because generally, at least for English, like often they'll adapt a paper that they've already written, so then maybe that's something that they've started thinking about, and then like obviously grad students and stuff can have been working on their research, but like most first years only have 1 or 2 classes that are running right now. So I'm just curious like what programs they've been so busy with. But yeah, anyway, I guess I'll find out next week. But tonight, what I've been doing, I have to watch The Day After Tomorrow for the class I'm TAing for. So I'm gonna watch that. I've like just started it. And yeah, it's kind of a stacked cast actually. I hadn't heard of it before though, but it's like a kind of apocalyptic, like climate disaster type movie. Jake Gyllenhaal's in it. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing tonight. Hi guys, so it's a couple of days later, because yesterday I really didn't do too much. I just had the class that I'm TAing for, and then came home and stuff. It was the Summer I Turned Pretty finale, and I have thoughts on it. There was things that I really liked and things that I didn't like. I might be in the minority. I enjoyed Belly's bob. I thought it looked good on her. I thought it suited her. I think that it like had the effect of making her look more mature, older, which is I think the purpose. I haven't read the books, but because of TikTok, I basically know everything that happens in the books. So I know in the books she like cuts her hair and Conrad's like, oh, it makes you look older. Because there's like a time jump when she sees him again. And I do, like, in the first bit of this episode, I was like, I feel like this is trying to show us how Belly's grown, how she's like more mature and comfortable in her skin. And to a certain extent, I think that's true, but it just had the vibe to me of someone who's like play acting at being more mature. Like, look, Conrad, look at how grown up I am and how like European I am now. It's very like, yeah, I've lived in Paris for a year. I'm basically a local. And like, been in Europe for a year and made it her whole personality, which is, you know, I get it. I was in Oxford for 2 years and I made it my entire personality. So I understand, but like it felt very put on. And then I liked that we did kind of see that it was like later in the episode after they've like been together and she is kind of like letting her walls down again, because like even her mannerisms are quite different in that first bit. So we do kind of see her being more like honest at the end. And also people are like, see, she's more mature. She broke up with Benito instead of stringing him along. She's still pretty messy, because like, obviously it's to like trick the audience and Conrad, like, no, he's not my boyfriend. I never said he was. Well, you were kind of rubbing him in his face like he was your boyfriend. And also, they've been broken up for, he says, 6 weeks, but you're still all over each other all the time, and he's pulled you aside at your party to give you a giant photograph of you in bed that you then show to everyone. Sorry about that, my camera died. But I believe I was mid-rant about the Summer I Turned Pretty and Belly and the like weirdness with Benito and everything, showing like, has she matured that much? I don't think so. But I did like things that I liked about the episode. I liked the like dynamic between them at the beginning, where she's somehow showing him around all of Paris, into the Louvre, Versailles, which like you gotta take a bus or a train to get to Versailles. The lines are crazy for all of this stuff. All in a day, she's wearing tall wedge heels, but we suspend our disbelief. I like it because like they had the banter and like that they were happy to be around each other at the time, but there's still like the kind of awkwardness and the tension of like he's trying to kind of get a read on her and she's not sure why he's there yet. And I don't know, it's just like it was very like well played. And then obviously
they get together at the end. But before that, I liked when they're like dancing by the Seine, and they start kind of like joking about basically the way that they've like treated each other bad before, and they're kind of like apologizing for it without directly apologizing, you know what I mean? Like, I think in this episode we see Belly start to like take the appropriate amount of responsibility for stuff, because like at the dinner where she says, no, I was the villain of the scenario. And when they're dancing later, he brings up prom and that he acted badly then, and she's like, and I was also really bratty about you acting badly considering the circumstances with your mom. And then also like bringing up how she told him to go to hell at his mom's funeral, and like they're laughing about it but are also like, sorry. And I liked that like those things, they addressed those things before they got together and kind of made up. And then I just think it was a bit weird that then she's like pushing him away again. But that I also like that they bring up like, hey, maybe you and Jeremiah, but like mainly you, maybe you're so hyperfixated on me because maybe you've hyperfixated on me because of your mother's death. And I do kind of wish that they were like, yeah, that kind of played a part in us getting together when we did, but I think that like we know from Conrad's POV in the show at least that like he has liked her long before his mom got sick. And so I think that Belly still doesn't fully grasp that. Like, they haven't really talked about that. But I like that, like, they did finally talk about that, because that's something that I think has been going on in the show, that despite the many people, you know, analyzing it on TikTok, I've never seen anybody really bring that up. Like, the fact that Jeremiah and Conrad, to a lesser extent, but also him as well, have sort of like misplaced or using their relationship with Belly to kind of like avoid grieving their mother, and Belly's is kind of doing the same thing. And so that's not really something that they like fully talk about, but it is something that now she's kind of bringing up with him. And so I liked that that was included again. And then I also enjoyed the kind of, that they flipped the trope of like, that it's her running through the train station to get back to him, because usually like in a rom-com it's the guy running through the airport to catch the girl. So I liked that they kind of flipped it and had her do a like grand romantic gesture for him, because I think that I feel like Belly needs to take a more active role. I did find the ending a bit strange, which then makes sense that they've announced the movie, but I think the movie is so unnecessary, because what more are we gonna get out of this story? Like, how much, like, she's just homie hopping, but with brothers. And like, we've had 3 seasons of that. How much more can there possibly be to mine from this? Especially because I think they could have just resolved everything if they just like changed the ending scene a little bit. So then to have a movie when all you need is like a tweak at the end. How I think it should have ended. I don't think that there should be a movie. I think that everything could have been the same, but in that final scene where her and Conrad drive back to Cousins, in the show they just drive back to the empty house. But what I think should have happened is that they come back to the house and everyone's there, like maybe it's for Belly's birthday or 4th of July or something, like the whole family is at the house. So we see that like Jeremiah and Conrad are both getting along better with their dad. Conrad maybe says something to Jeremiah that like makes it clear that they've been in touch this whole year. And then like maybe Belly goes and says hi to Jeremiah, and like it's awkward, but it makes it like clear, but like that they've all kind of accepted this and are moving on. And that Jeremiah is like cool with Belly, that they're getting to like a place where they're like friends again. And that's all that you need to finish it. It could have been done. Today, I went, after my camera died, I took the bus because I was gonna go to Walmart to try to get ranch powder to make this freaking dip. But apparently the universe doesn't want me to have this dip because Walmart didn't have it. And I was so upset because you can't like see if the item's in stock in Walmart, but you can like set your location for which store location you're gonna go to. So I did that, and then I searched ranch powder, and it comes up. It's right there. So I'm like, okay, they must have it. And then it just gives you an option of like, deliver, can pick up like tomorrow or whatever. So then I'm assuming, okay, it must be there then. No, they didn't have it. I looked everywhere, and I even asked somebody, which to be fair, this lady, she was very, very confident, but she just answered very fast. And it made me think, I don't know if you knew what I was asking for, but she said that they didn't have it. So, and I couldn't find it. So I just don't think that it's there. And I don't understand why. This is Canada. Give me some ranch powder. If I was back in Oxford and I couldn't find it, I'd be like, okay, fair enough, because they'd be like, oh, you stupid North American, we don't have ranch at all, even though they have like all these spiced mayos, but okay. And blah, blah, blah. But give me my ranch powder. It's in everything. I couldn't find it. I was gonna go to maybe Sobeys because there's one near there, but it's very far away, or not very far, but like I'd have had to have crossed a couple major roads, and I was like, I'm tired and can't be bothered. I'll just try to order this at some point. So I was foiled once again, and I just don't think that you can make it without the ranch powder, because or else it would just be like I've mixed pickles with plain Greek yogurt, and that sounds disgusting. But I did also go over to, before I went to Walmart and had this ranch fiasco, I also went to the mall because I hadn't been to it yet. It was right by the Walmart, and I was like, I'm just gonna check out what the mall here is like, what stores they have. It's actually quite nice. It's really big, and they had a lot of good stores. Let's try it on a couple of cute things in Simon's, because I love Simon's. We don't have one back home, so roll the tapes of what I saw at the mall. And then main reason why I went was because I wanted to go to Kohl's to get Tessa Bailey's book. So I got Picture Perfect. This is the Indigo edition, which has like the cute sprayed edges with the hockey sticks. I don't think that it has anything special in it. Like I don't think there's a bonus chapter or anything. But yeah, I'm really excited for this because I've loved this series so far. Dream Girl Drama, which is the book that came out before this, is probably in my top 3 of Tessa Bailey books, full stop. Again, saying a lot because I love Tessa Bailey. It doesn't beat It Happened One Summer, but I do think it beat Unfortunately Yours for me. Or it's very close anyway. Close, my top 2 and 3 are very close. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this one because it sounds really fun. I think it's like a fake dating situation. So we met the guy in, I don't think we met him in Fangirl Down, but we definitely met him in the Au Pair Affair. He's one of Burgess and Sid's younger teammates on their professional hockey team. And then the girl is a baseball player who we met in Dream Girl Drama. They like challenged, I think the baseball team, they were like, we'll beat you at baseball. And then she was the pitcher for the team, which is quite funny. So then we kind of see that he immediately likes her and kind of starts flirting with her, and she's not having it. She's into someone else. She's into her brother's best friend, but she doesn't really have a lot of dating experience. So she kind of asks him to like help her make him jealous. So he agrees to be her like fake boyfriend and also like kind of help her try to get this guy. But in the meantime, sparks fly, I presume. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. Probably going to start it this weekend. And yeah, I'm so excited. I've been loving this series. I love Tessa Bailey. I just think her brand of humor just works for me. I think she's so funny, and she's so funny on Instagram and TikTok too. And yeah, I just love her voice. In other book news, we found out that there's going to be a Chestnut Springs Netflix show, which I am excited about because I actually think it would make a good TV show, but I'm a little curious how they're gonna format it because I don't know if like the romance series format would necessarily work for a TV show, because like in most romance series that are like interconnected standalones is that each book follows a new couple, which is how the Chestnut Springs series work. Like each book follows the Eaton brothers slash their like really close friends, like basically brothers. Like Jasper is not technically related to the Eatons, but he grew up with them. And so each book follows a different person basically. So I'm curious if the TV show is going to do that, because I just don't know if that like works for a TV show necessarily. But I think it could, but I'm not sure if each one will like, or if they'll all kind of be like happening semi-simultaneously and then drawn out over the course of multiple seasons, because I feel like that could work too. But yeah, I'm very curious how it's gonna go. But I actually think that this one would make quite a good series if they don't go like too cheesy, because I think you need to like lean into the bit of, you know, it's a cowboy romance series, but I mean, it just needs to be well done, like well acted and everything. But I'm also curious, since it's, you know, Netflix, if it's gonna be set in Alberta or not, or if they're gonna make it American. Because I could see them doing that. And honestly, I might prefer if it's American, although on the other hand, it would be cool if it was like filmed in Canada and like actually set in Canada, to be fair. I think it's just that Alberta is so like close to home for me that when I was reading the books, every time they brought up the fact that like these guys live just outside Calgary, I was always like, whoa. Because I think like for me, when it's so close, it's hard to like necessarily maintain the same kind of like romanticized vision of ranch life, especially because I think Elsie Silver is like quite vocal, and you know, it's very hyped that she's a Canadian author. At least she is here. Like I was just at the bookstore today and she had a book come out recently, so it was also on the front tables and it had little stickers that are like Canadian author, Canadian author. And I read some interviews where she talks about like writing about where she's from and that kind of thing. So I'm curious what they're gonna do with that. The casting for It Happened One Summer, I'm not the biggest fan. Like I really like Nina Dobrev, but she's not Piper, like in any way. And I don't think that Nina Dobrev's like a bad actor, but I just don't think that she could pull off Piper well, because I think that is very hard to pull off like Piper's kind of personality well. Like Piper was inspired by Alexis from Schitt's Creek, and Annie Murphy just did such an amazing job playing that kind of character in a show that's like, yeah, is comedy, but like at times it's almost dramedy. Like it's not a caricature of a person, you know what I mean? Which I think it would be very easy for the Piper, like Alexis character type to come off that way. And I just think that that's kind of what might happen with like Nina Dobrev's version. And also, sorry again, I keep hating on all of these actors for being too old, but she's too old to play Piper. And the guy I don't have strong opinions on. He's not like how I pictured Brendan, but he's not awful like visually wise for Brendan. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything, so I can't really comment on like how he'll play Brendan. And then same with the girl who is playing Hannah. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything. I did see some people comment that they actually thought that that actress would make a better Piper. So yeah, I'm curious about that. I reserve judgment. I'm sure it will be okay. But yeah, I'm hoping that it's good, because that is like my all-time favorite contemporary romance novel. So I was so excited that it was getting a movie adaptation, but also I'd rather not have a movie than have a not great movie, you know? So for both Chestnut Springs and It Happened One Summer, I'm cautiously optimistic. For the rest of the evening, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna do some more readings for my classes, and I'm going to look at some of my TA stuff for tomorrow. Hi guys, so it's Friday. This morning I sent some feedback back to the students that I'm TAing for, because basically
this professor has it set up so they get graded, part of their grade is participation, but some of that grade comes from little like mini in-class kind of writing assignments, but they're quite short because you take like 5 minutes to respond to a prompt or something. And then it's a way to get some participation credit, which is especially nice for people who like maybe don't like talking in class, because I think that's nice because then you can like still get some credit for that. And then also you're able to continue to like get feedback on your writing outside of the like graded, the bigger assignments. Like for example, in the tutorial today, we were talking about drafting thesis statements. So they returned a thesis statement essentially. So then they're gonna be able to get notes on their actual writing, which will hopefully help them be more specific. But yeah, then we went and had the tutorial talking about thesis statements, and now I'm back just doing some more work. I think I'm going to read some of the book that we're reading for my detective fiction course right now. So I'm taking a class, I don't know if I've talked about this one, on queerness and detective fiction. So the first book that we're reading is A Murder is Announced by Agatha Christie. So I think I'm gonna read some of that before this evening when I'm going to a beer garden, because the DAGSI, which is the department, like the English department of graduate studies, like social committee, are hosting like a social event there basically. So I'm gonna go and hang out with everybody at the beer garden. But yeah, before I'm gonna do some reading. Hi everybody, so it is Saturday now. Last night was quite fun at the beer garden. There was quite a few people there. It was probably mostly the new group and then a couple of the upper year PhDs, so once we kind of organized it. So it was nice to get to chat to everyone again. Everyone's very excited that classes are actually starting. So yeah, and like got a few, got some like tips of places that are nice to go in the city. Like they were talking about going to the farmer's market this weekend, and I guess there's like 2 different farmer's markets. They were talking about the differences between the 2. So yeah, made some notes of that. And then today I'd gotten this little like little grocery cart, little grandma like grocery trolley to carry groceries, because when my parents were here, my mom had asked if I would want one, and I was like, because I thought that even at Oxford, I thought that something like that would be nice. But I was like, oh, I don't know, because like the distance from where I live to the nearest grocery store is about the same as what it was in Oxford. And I was like, I was always fine there. Like occasionally it would be a bit annoying, but like didn't need it. And then I went once to the grocery store, and on the way back I was like, this sucks. So I just got a little trolley kind of thing, and I went to the grocery store today. It's sick. I love it. Everybody should get a little grocery trolley. It's perfect. But I got like a boxed cake mix and stuff, and I made cupcakes because I just been like wanting a cupcake. So I got some of those because like who has the time to, you know, make full-on cupcakes from scratch? So I just made those, and I'm gonna like freeze some of them and everything, and then when I want a cupcake, I can just have a cupcake. So I did that, cleaned the apartment today and everything, and I'm also just trying to catch up and get ahead on readings that we're supposed to be at for this week. Because I think for most classes, they are going to be like altering the syllabus a little bit, but should be like up to date with their readings from what they had. So yeah, still doing that, or trying to like get ahead a little bit, so we'll see. But yeah, just going between those. So mainly going between my detective fiction readings and Gawain, because those are the things that I have a syllabus for at this point. My other class it's got kind of like a broad course title, but apparently it's the same as what some people took last year. So
the title of the course or the theme of the course is Beauty Just? And I have the list of readings, but don't really know what order. She'd said, the girl who I'd been speaking to about it, who took this class last year while she was doing her MA, said that last year they started with Charlotte's Web, because one of the books that we're going to be reading is Charlotte's Web, which I think is going to be really fun to discuss. So that might be the first book, not really sure, but we'll see. Sunday now. I'm just doing a collection of readings for queerness and detective fiction, and there's one that I had kind of skipped and I'm coming back to now, that's on Hercule Poirot, who is Agatha Christie's kind of Sherlock Holmes-esque detective, if you haven't read any Christie. I've read a couple books with Poirot. He's, if you've watched any of the recent Agatha Christie adaptations, he's the detective in Murder on the Orient Express and in Death on the Nile, I believe. So there are kind of like some questions of his sexuality, because he's never married, and there's just kind of other little clues. He has kind of a Watson-esque character named Hastings, who serves the same role as Watson. Like, Watson is the character that Sherlock has to explain his thinking to, which then has the effect of having it explained to the reader. And Hastings is that kind of character for Poirot. So he's very kind of bumbling, not the smartest, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And so questions of, I just thought that this was like a funny phrasing, because there's one area of interest to those of us of a later vintage than Poirot, and given that natal date, who could be otherwise, blah, blah, blah. Sexual proclivities. Well, Poirot was of course never married, but if we run along the ground smelling with the nose on that track various little ideas, which is what Poirot kind of called his early stage of detectiving, do spring up. Why, for instance, was he quite so fond of a duffer like Captain Hastings? I don't know, because I don't know how old this article is, 1977. So I don't know if duffer is, it just seems like a very British insult for someone who's stupid, but I don't know if it's an offensive word. I'm gonna look it up. Apparently it's not. It says, the swear word is used to refer to people who have screwed up on a particular class. It also refers to a stupid and incompetent person. Although this insult is of British origin, it's used in Australia to refer to cattle rustlers. Yeah. So an incompetent or stupid person, especially an elderly one. That just made me chuckle when it came up, because it's not totally out of tone with the rest of the article, but I feel like often in, assigned readings, you don't get fun little British insults all the time. So I'm gonna finish up the batch of readings that I want to do, and then I'd like to go for a walk to get out of the apartment. So I might go through the park, might head over to Shoppers at some point today, just take a little jaunt, a little more exploration. And yeah, that's all I have planned so far for the afternoon, but we'll see what else comes up. Okay, hello again guys. So my bad if there's background noise. I have a window open and my dishwasher going, so there's a lot going on. But I'm just reading more of A Murder Is Announced, so I'm hoping that I can finish it tonight or maybe tomorrow. But yeah, I enjoy Agatha Christie. I haven't read, like I said, I haven't read a ton of her books, but I've read a couple, and she just does snark so well. This is one of my favorite lines. This is from quite early in the book, but they just have these little quips all the time, constantly, that are easy to just blow by, but they're so funny. So this is like right when the murder happens, basically. So they're talking about the person who was killed seems to have delivered the advertisement himself, because basically in the book, all of these people in the village come, like there's this announcement in the personal sections that like, oh, there's gonna be a murder at this house at this time, please do come, essentially. So most people, the people think that it's gonna be like a game. So they show up, they think it's gonna be like a murder mystery, and then an intruder comes in and is killed. And so the police are like finding out the person, that the person who died seems to have like put in the advertisement in the paper themselves. So they're talking about the blonde who receives the advertisements is quite incapable of thinking, I should say, sir. And that just made me chuckle. I thought it was funny. Yeah, she's very quippy. And I feel like the movies don't, I feel like, I'm sure that there's some like older adaptations of her novels, so I'd be curious what they're like, but I feel like the new ones don't just like fully capture that sense of humor. I'm enjoying it. I don't read a lot of like thrillers or detective books, but I do enjoy it. I tend to, I think, probably gravitate more towards that genre in like movies than I do in books sometimes, but there are definitely like certain authors that I enjoy and everything. Like I'm more likely to watch Sherlock than I am to like read the Sherlock Holmes books, you know? But I am enjoying it, and I'm excited to get to read a little bit more of it, because I've always like enjoyed the genre, but it's not one that I've like read a ton of. So yeah, this is just what the rest of my evening is going to look like. So I think I'm going to say goodnight and goodbye now. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next vlog.